Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast. I've launched a brand new culture and politics podcast called Can You Hear Me Shaking My Head? I know some of you may want to avoid hearing any political talk at all, but I've been bringing on writers of hit TV shows as well to talk about their process, and the discussions have been really cool. I'd really appreciate it if you popped your head over to the podcast and gave it a listen. Again, it's called Can You Hear Me Shaking My Head? And it's definitely a different version of me you haven't heard, and I think you'll find it equally entertaining and insightful. Why the hell was Dave Fizdale fired? What happens to the Clippers now that Blake is out? Which other coaches are on the hot seat? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast / live show. As always, I'm joined by Dave Dufour. Dave, thanks for joining us today, post-Thanksgiving. I hope you had a good one.
Yeah, it was very relaxing.
That's always good. Did you have a turkey?
I did. Yeah, it was okay.
Okay. Don't sound too excited, but okay.
I had a good time. It was fun.
Nice. Okay, and it perhaps looks like you're frozen. Let me see. Are you frozen on the other side here? You are. Well, so much for Skype working.
God, Skype is terrible.
But at least we can hear you, and you sound much better than you look anyway.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm a beautiful man.
You have a beautiful voice, though, so let's not knock it. Let's break in. We have some breaking news we should get into right away, and maybe while you're talking, I will fix your audio or your video. But okay, so what we have here, we have breaking news on Blake Griffin. What do you
David
hear?
Aldridge. David Aldridge reporting that it's a sprained MCL, which probably means 4 to 6 weeks. But that's enough to kill their season.
I mean, can we argue that the season was kind of already killed at this point or not?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely hasn't been good. Losing Teodosic, losing Beverly for the year, and now
Beverly is not lost for the year. I thought he was out for like 3 months.
No, he had microfracture surgery. He is out for the year. You're thinking of Paul Millsap, who's out for like 3 months.
No, well, that was the risk. But no, I thought, okay, I must have missed the prognosis, and that's going to kill them.
They're done.
Yeah, they're already 8-11, 10th place. A half game in front of the Lakers. That reflects last night's game. So, it's interesting to know because I think people have hope and they're fans and they want their teams to do well. But I have to imagine that, like, if you win 8 of the first 20 games of the season, then like you're pretty much guaranteed never to make the playoffs with that start.
Yeah, they're not going to make the playoffs. DeAndre Jordan is going to be a free agent this summer. I think they're probably going to start shopping him, I would imagine. Yeah. What's the market look like? I don't know, because Marc Gasol may also be on the market. I don't know.
That's interesting, although I wonder how that would work. You also have to then bring in the hot seat, which we'll talk about in a second because somebody just already burned his ass on it. But we have some coaches now. Doc, I have to imagine. Well, how about this? With the injuries, does that save his job?
So, that's an interesting thing, right? Like now there's the excuse. We've got all these injuries. Of course, we didn't perform the way that we would. I think that, next season is the last year of his deal, so he'd be going into a lame duck season. I don't know. I think Doc is probably out.
You think he's out before the end of the year?
I don't know about that. He may make it through the season, but I think he's out definitely by the middle of the summer. By the time the draft happens, he's out.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think this was all laid. The groundwork was laid last season or before this season started when they got rid of him as GM. Right? That just seems like that was the first steps to preparing themselves for firing him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, how often do people take a demotion and then stick around? It doesn't happen often.
Right. So we'll have to see how that goes. And I think it's time. I think he's been there long enough. I think it's just, he wanted out of Boston when he didn't want to be part of a rebuild. And this is now clearly a rebuild again. And unless he likes the lifestyle and wants to just be in LA, or simply likes a job, which he might not have, if he loses this job, let's say, I wonder, do you think he gets another one?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a good enough coach that he'll stick around. And he won a title, and those guys usually get chance after chance after chance. And I would imagine he probably gets another job, maybe a couple years. I know that there was a lot of talk about him going to Orlando, but Frank Vogel kind of turned things around a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I would definitely say if Doc is a free agent, watch for Orlando. Got a lot of ties with that organization.
All right, they're going to try and find the magic. No pun intended. Again, I suppose, even though there wasn't much there when he was there the first time. So all right, we'll have to see. I would be surprised, but then again, nothing surprised me more than opening my phone up yesterday, to find out that Dave Fizdale was fired from the Memphis Grizzlies. Was that a surprise to you?
Yeah, it was a shock, actually. We all saw the Gasol benching and heard his comments after that game, and I guess that there was a lot more fire in Memphis than the smoke was showing, because I wouldn't have thought that they had all these issues, but of course, right after that happened, you hear, hey, Fizdale rubbed a lot of the veterans the wrong way and all this other stuff. And my only, as I'm trying to unpack it myself, my only thought is, well, he came from the Heat organization. Maybe he tried to bring in some of that Heat culture. Hey, you're going to be in shape. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And we've heard about veterans in Miami not liking that, signing with the Heat and not enjoying the rigors that they put them through. I mean, they have hard practices. You've got body fat percentage goals you've got to hit and all this other stuff. And I think that must be a part of this. And obviously Dave Yeager didn't have that happening. But if we look at the Grizzlies organization, this is the third coach that they fired since 2013.
Right.
Coming off of a playoff run.
Yeah.
There's some organizational dysfunction going on there. And it's to fire a coach who is well regarded as a very good coach. His X's and O's are excellent. His defensive chops are excellent. He really transformed that offense and took a team that just didn't have much talent outside of Conley and Gasol, took them to the playoffs last year. And, they've been without Conley now for a while. They lost 8 straight. There's no way you fire this guy in his second season because they lost 8 straight games without Mike Conley. You look at this roster, without Mike Conley, this is a lottery team.
Right.
You built the team, Chris Wallace. Don't put the blame on Fizdale. So there must be more behind the scenes personality stuff that we just aren't privy to. And obviously Marc Gasol, there's a problem there. And so if you're choosing between Marc Gasol and Fizdale and you want to choose Gasol, well then I guess Fizdale had to go. But for me, I think that was the wrong choice. Okay.
Well, I got some hot takes. You ready?
I'm ready.
Because I don't know anything, but I'm going to do pure conjecture theater right now. You ready? So we're doing pure conjecture sprints. I walked past Fizdale once. I don't know the guy at all. I have no real sense except for the fact that he was like the guy who really would be vocal and standing up behind Spoelstra a lot, to the point where you wondered who was the head coach. But that calmed down before he left. However, I think that he probably decided to take an old school approach with Marc Gasol. He thought that I need this guy to be the number one man. I need him to be the FU mentality. I need him to be just the leader of this team and whatever. So he decided he was going to get on him. That's how you're going to motivate this guy. And I have a feeling that knowing, and again, I've never even walked by Marc Gasol, but I've heard him speak and I sense who he is a little bit just by listening to his interviews and stuff. And I'm sensing that is the absolute wrong way you'd ever want to approach him. I think that the same thing happened with Powell, with D'Antoni in L.A., and so if you try to motivate Mark by yelling and screaming and getting really in his face or any of that kind of stuff, that is going to make him sulk. That is going to make him withdrawn. And then on top of that, you don't play him in the fourth quarter of the last game they played. That's going to be the Kobe death stare, right? I don't know if they had a shot of him on the bench or not, but I imagine that was happening. And I think that was a big mistake if it was rooted at all in that. And I think it's pretty safe to say, right, that whatever this Fizdale thing is rooted in his relationship with Marc Gasol, right?
For sure. It definitely seems that way.
So that's my hot take, is that he completely took the wrong approach to a kid who he shouldn't have done. And Fizdale is like our age, or how old is he? Do we know?
He's 43.
So he's my age, exactly, a little bit younger than me. So he's still connected to that era, which you would, that Lionel Hollins era. Brad Stevens is probably the same age, although he's sort of not in that same mindset of how to approach players. And so that could very well have been it. And I think he probably deserved a chance to say, hey, calm it down a little bit. Let's fix this relationship before they just fired him.
Right. It was dumb. It's a dumb decision. It's so short-sighted. Listen, Marc Gasol has been a really great player, but he's 33 years old. He's got the foot injury history, and he's a big man. And, you know how that makes me squeamish.
Yeah.
And, he's getting paid a lot of money on a team that's not very good. And I'm sorry, but choosing Marc Gasol over a young head coach who's, by the way, got 2 championship rings from Miami, well regarded around the league, and a culture changer. Not just a guy, not like a placeholder. He was not Earl Watson. He's not a guy that was brought in without the chops. This is a guy that has worked his way up as an assistant, was trying to impart a culture change, a full offensive system change, all these things, and overachieved with a not a good roster last year. He's got more upside than Marc Gasol. And I'm sorry, but I think it was a huge mistake by the Memphis Grizzlies to fire him. And I'm not alone. I mean, I think that this is not a hot take if you're reading the smart folks on Twitter. I think that if you're choosing between Marc Gasol and David Fizdale, they made the wrong choice.
But if you want to make the right choice and you're in the habit of keeping your face clean shaven, then you must try Harry's razors. I gotta tell you, the handle is my favorite part. It's ergonomic and balanced perfectly, and I also love their shave gel. Since I started using Harry's razors, people have been commenting on my smooth face a lot, and who wouldn't want that? And if you're one of those bearded millennials, get with the program and let us see your face. What are you hiding? If you're wondering how well the blades are made, the founders, Jeff and Andy, make them in a German factory. The highest quality razors for half the price of the leading 5-blade razor. You know what I'm talking about. And they're shipped right to your door. No asking the store clerk to open the display case in an effort to combat the black market on razors. Best of all, if you go to harrys.com/CoachNick, you'll get their trial set for free. Just cover the shipping cost. You'll get their awesome handle, 5 precision-engineered blades, rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. I'm positive you'll feel the same way I do about Harry's, so just do it. harrys.com/CoachNick, and you get your free trial set today. It would definitely help Marc Gasol's game, since I'm so frustrated watching him play. If they could ever get him to play like he's a 27-point-per-game scorer and really have that mindset, because he just looks to pass too much and then he gets stuck sort of half being aggressive, half not, and throws up bad shots. If he could just get in a different mindset, then the Grizzlies would be better. And I just don't think at this point, you're right. Is he really 33? Is that right? Is that Dave?
Yeah.
Is that Dave years?
No, he's 33.
Okay. So, it's not going to happen. He's going to be a complimentary player that you can get nice baskets out of when you throw him in the post, and he'll play some good defense. But he's just not that guy. It's not his fault. It's just not that guy. So,
right.
You're right.
He's 33 in January, by the way.
He's 32?
33 in January. So this is 33 season.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
So, but he's definitely, you're right, well regarded around the league. A lot of coaches feel like he really knows his stuff, and I would have thought he was a really good communicator, but I think, again, hot take, pure conjecture, whatever, but it just feels like he probably just took the wrong tack and probably felt like he could get away. If it didn't work, he'd have time to fix it. He didn't, and here we are. So, which also brings up some questions we have in the chat over on Periscope, because we have talking about hot seat theater. Who is in the hot seat now? You're talking about, we'd mentioned Doc Rivers, but you're talking about Jason Kidd. And I feel bad because I don't ever want to call a guy out and say he needs to be fired. I did a video. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the three-point defense video I did?
I did not.
So we went over all the things that the top defensive clubs are doing. And by the way, the Lakers were, I think, number 1 in three-point percentage. And I didn't say this in the video, but I think it's going to go down because I saw enough. I saw what they were doing and how they were executing it, and there was a lot of good stuff. But there's a lot of possessions they were just getting lucky. However, I did then show the last couple minutes were the Milwaukee Bucks, who I think were at that time 30th in the league in three-point percentage. And so they were doing a lot of really bad techniques as far as like they were kind of doubling the pick and roll, and then that was leading to all sorts of rotational breakdowns, and they couldn't get stop the teams from getting open threes. They also, Bledsoe was killing them on the weak side. I didn't think I realized just how bad he was on weak side defense, just gambling out of position, and that's just causing all sorts of stuff. And so here's the problem I have with the Bucks was always their offense, right? That was the problem I had with Kidd and the offense. And then I'm realizing, well, Jesus, they can't even guard the three-point line right. So what are we thinking here?
So, I actually just talked about this earlier today. I think one of their big issues is just their defensive style is not they need to save that hard hedging. I mean, they're showing super high. They need to save that for high leverage situations. They're doing it too much. They don't have the personnel to do that for 48 minutes. I think they need to employ more of a drop back schemes, and then they won't get burned as bad on the weak side. And again, this is, if you look around the league, all of the good defensive teams, this is what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, the Spurs, how do you think they take a guy like Pau Gasol, who has been a turnstile, and make him a part of the best defense in the league? It's conservative, drop back, and then you use a guy like Kawhi and Danny Green to hedge hard in high leverage situations. That's it. And also maybe trapping LeBron James 30 feet from the basket is not a good idea. I'm just going to throw that out there. I know that's crazy, but like stuff like that is what I see from the Bucks defense. And, just to switch over to their offense so I can piggyback your comment, I've never seen a team that could play 4 shooters and have no space. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
It is a complete shit show. That Jason Kidd is on the hot seat. I think Jason Kidd's the next to go.
I agree. And it's funny because there was a moment there where I thought things were going a lot better than they were in Brooklyn. They had gotten to the playoffs. They played the Bulls. And I thought that there was something happening there, the way the style of play, whatever. But no, he is of an era. And I know it all too well because Jason Kidd and I are the same age. And so the way he's coaching is how you would have coached in 1994. It is. It's really astounding to me. And it's like, has anybody out there, any coaches out there watching this right now, have you guys ever like been to a clinic and seen Jason Kidd there? Or even if he was speaking, because maybe he'd go and listen to some other people talk too. But it's like there's all this certain, what's the word I'm looking for? The certain vintage of coach who, like, I don't know if they're like looking to improve their knowledge. They get to a certain station, they feel like they know everything they need to know, and it's really, really too bad.
Yeah, but Jason Kidd hasn't been a coach long enough to act that way. I mean,
right.
unless it's just one of those things where his playing career allows him to feel that way. I just don't get it. It's not good. Let's just put it that way. To have a top 5 player like Giannis, and guess what? They don't have a bunch of scrubs around him. They've got some good players up there. They should be much better than they are. And man, we got to get it.
What do you make of the Giannis screaming at the assistant coach Sweeney? What do you make of that?
Well, I've got a couple of different angles on this. First, I think it's inappropriate. I know you're in the heat of the moment, but I think for a player to scream at a coach like that, unacceptable.
Coach yelling back?
Yeah, coach yelling back. That's a problem. Coach, you got to just take it.
Yeah.
You're the peacemaker, right? These guys have to go on the court and perform. You do not. And 3, to me, that speaks to Giannis's frustration with the coaching staff in general. I think that, there's no way this is the first time that it's happened. You don't yell at someone like that the first time you have, that you butt heads. It just doesn't go from 0 to 100 like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not good, man. I think that, and I mentioned this earlier today on my podcast that just dropped, but I think we might be approaching, and it's crazy to think this because this is year 1 of his contract extension, but might we be approaching the time where we get a Woj tweet that says Giannis is unhappy in Milwaukee and would like a trade?
Yeah.
I mean, if Giannis tweets, I don't want to be here, it's over. You're done.
Yeah. The first person to go was the coach. And that
Absolutely.
would be too bad because, and by the way, why would he want to go? I mean, looking at it, the roster is promising. There's pieces there So, clearly it would be an issue where he's looking around realizing that, the foundation is not there to help them win, which is really too bad because if all the years to really have broken out and surprised people, it would have been this year, even though we can talk about Cleveland in a second, who's kind of coming back into form. This was it. This was their chance. And I think most of the Eastern Conference teams, like Washington's the same way. By the way, is Scotty Brooks on the hot seat here?
Not at all. No, I think Scotty Brooks is actually doing an okay job. They're fine.
Okay, I guess. I mean, they're sort of the same as they've been. They haven't really. I mean, they're 10.
They have no bench. They have no bench.
Okay.
And I think the Wizards front office is much more realistic about what they have going on than other teams.
Okay.
Like Memphis.
Well, then that means that the nucleus needs to be blown up, wouldn't you say? It's been years now.
Not really. I mean, no. Remember, Beal had the injury issues the first couple years. Wall, Beal, and
Gortat.
Porter are all on their first extension. Now, Gortat's still a good player. Their issue is again, it's the bench. Their starting five has been really good again, but they just have no bench, and part of that is the constraints of the salary cap and stuff like that. They continue to trade their first round pick for guys that leave the next summer. Like Bojan Bogdanovic last year. I forget who it was the year before. Oubre coming around has been huge. Satoransky has looked okay.
I think it was Pierce from they had the year before, maybe.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was Pierce. And man, it's I think that what they're building, I think is worthwhile. That Jan Mahimi contract is probably the biggest hindrance to them actually taking the next step.
Okay.
They're one guy away.
Yeah.
And that guy might be, Boogie Cousins. I don't know.
You think it's one guy, huh? Yeah. And by the way, you are right. I'm looking at the top 5-man lineups right now. They're number 2 in net rating with minimum 100 minutes played, plus 22.5. So yeah, they're blowing teams out when the starters are playing.
Yeah.
But it's too bad because I really like and I like the development that they have from. Wait a minute. The team. The lineup that's actually doing really well is Beal, Gortat, Oubre, Porter, and Wall.
Right, because they're starting Morris.
Right.
Yeah.
But that means so that means that so that's actually that's interesting. They should be playing that lineup a lot more. Perhaps Oubre should get in the starting lineup then, right? Because he's not starting. I should check that to make sure it lasts or whatever. But every year, millions of people receive the least liked gift of all time: underwear. But we still give it to our family and our loved ones who just don't want it. But maybe it's not the underwear that's the problem. It's the kind of underwear. Let me tell you about MeUndies, the only underwear that makes for an amazing gift. MeUndies has the softest fabric I've ever let touch my backside. The waistband doesn't make those marks in my skin since it's so flexible, and they use natural, sustainably sourced fiber to keep it that way. And the pouch is form-fitting like a kangaroo's. You get the picture. MeUndies made underwear the perfect gift that everyone is going to love you for. It's a goddamn holiday miracle. This year, don't give underwear, give MeUndies. And this holiday season, to get your exclusive 20% off the softest underwear and socks you'll ever wear, free shipping, and 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/CoachNick. That's MeUndies.com/CoachNick and pursue your life of skivvy freedom. Anyway, that's interesting to see. And then, we have this discussion every year where we start to wonder just how much do NBA coaches stare at the 5-man lineup data? Because, right, assholes like us will tend to criticize them all the time about why they're not playing certain lineups, this, that, whatever. And it's almost like they don't realize.
I bet they don't. I bet, we're both coaches, and I go a lot by feel. Hey, this looks good to me. Now, hopefully the stats would back it up, but a lot of times, man, you have to go based on that because you're making these decisions oftentimes within the game. Now, in the NBA, it's not quite as on the fly. You've got your rotations, you've got your assistant there. Hey, it's 7:24 in the first quarter. We want to make this up. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I get it, but you do go a lot by feel, especially in close game situations. I got another name for you, and someone just brought this up in the chat, but Billy Donovan may be on the hot seat.
Yeah, listen, they went big and they're going to go home, it sounds like, with this one, right? I'm going to do a video on them this week and really take a deep dive to figure it out, but we were talking on the DMs the other day about it. Yeah, it's here's the thing. I feel bad for Billy. Do you feel bad for Billy?
I mean, he's getting paid, and, I think he's a better coach than what he's been able to show.
Right. I think Billy and Fred Hoiberg could have a support group together, because I feel like both of those guys were never really allowed to do what they would normally do. Although you could argue that Hoiberg kind of has the opportunity now, but then the roster is not good.
Well, so just quick aside on Hoiberg. Hoiberg's offensive stuff this year with shitty players has looked so much better than it has the last 3 years. It's 3 years, right? Or is it only 2? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it feels like 10.
Yeah.
It feels like he's been there for 10. But really, like, Hoiberg's offensive stuff has looked so much better, and the Bulls would be smart to just keep him and let's see what we've got. But back to Billy Donovan. When Donovan was hired, I actually said this, he's not this offensive genius. He's a good recruiter in college basketball. That's the most important part to success in college basketball. High school and college basketball is, the fastest horses win the race. If you recruit well, if you've got good players, there's no amount of coaching you can do to coach your way into having, top recruits. That's just not, it has nothing to do with it. So being a good coach in college is a lot of, like, with if you look at what Brad Stevens did, you could see the creativity in the offense and the defense. You could see the silent out of bounds. The X and O stuff was there. You could see how the relationships he had with his players. Now, Billy Donovan was a great relationship coach, but I don't think his X and O stuff was impressive at all. The offense he ran was unoriginal, kind of just whatever. Going to the NBA, I just think it's so important to be – if you're not going to be the X and O's guy as the head coach, you need to bring those guys in, and they don't have them. A lot of teams are like this.
I need to go back and watch. I did a video on his offense out of Florida, and as I remember, there was movement. It was clever. It was like there was promising that they're going to get KD and Russ to work better together. But here's what happens: he gets there. He knows. Okay, it's just like Fizdale. He knows that he doesn't want to ruffle feathers, and there's a culture already in place. And by culture is sort of a code word. And I don't think he was allowed to run his stuff. And I think he might have put some stuff in, and they simply didn't run it. Because you cannot tell me, especially in those first year or two, when they would run their offense, like no coach would ever design what they were doing a lot of the time. That was just like freelance, F it, I'm doing whatever I'm going to do. And then you know what, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do because you're doing whatever you want to do.
That's
and
right.
I think Billy Donovan was like, let's just kind of keep the ship floating and see if we can get these guys through. And then maybe our talent will overwhelm people and we'll get to the second round of the playoffs or whatever. And that's kind of where they got. Now, that said, he did have control over lineups, and that's what allowed him to beat the Spurs in the playoffs. What was that? 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
And up 3-1 in against the Warriors. So it wasn't even like the X's and O's, like you're saying. It was at least he can control the lineups, but.
He had Kevin Durant.
I just feel like he never got a chance, and I don't want to get all the Russ fans in a tizzy, but I really feel like he is the common denominator across all of this. And I feel like, I know Reggie Jackson pretty well. He's a great guy. To think that he got so ostracized in that locker room on his own volition for whatever he was doing, it just boggles my mind. And the list goes on and on. I mean, it sounded like Serge had some issues at some point, which I'm sure he's a great teammate as well. We know why KD left, and I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, I tweeted out a stat. Russell Westbrook has taken 199 out of his 359 shots as the pick and roll ball handler or in isolation. He's had 22 spot ups and 3 shots as a cutter. That is not good offense. Every single thing he's doing is hard. And he's not good at those things. He's shooting 35% out of pick and roll. His ISO is about 45%, which is decent, but still not amazing. Mm-hmm. And what they do is just, he has the ball. You might get some early passes, but he just stands up 30 feet from the basket waiting to get the ball again. So any early action is completely just for no reason. It's for looks. Yeah. There's no actions toward the basket. Someone mentioned, hey, they run a lot of horn sets. Okay, but horns is a set. It's not like a play. They run actions that go nowhere and wind up in a Russ isolation or Russ making the pass to a spot-up shooter. And it's just not good offense. It's easy to defend. And even easier when they're playing Robertson 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Robertson needs the Zaza treatment.
Which, by the way, is more confounding because last year there was a really big excuse for all of that. Not this year, not when you have Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. And I don't know what the deal is with Carmelo, and tell me if you agree with this, but it looks to me like he is phoning it in on a 24/4 modem. Really doesn't give a shit about anything out there. Just jacking up shots, catching the ball, holding it, and it's like throwing it up, and not really running. His defense is just terrible. There's no energy. And I wonder if he got there, was like looking around and saying, okay, let's see how this is going. And then he sees what the deal is, and he's like, this is terrible. I have to imagine this is what we predicted earlier. Paul George has already made his airplane flight to L.A. by this point, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, Paul George, I think, is the best player in this team. And I know that's another hot take. But when you watch that team, Paul George, man, he's doing things on both sides of the ball and really like keeping him in games. Yeah,
I think that all those Robertson minutes need to just go to Abrinas, Grant, and Patterson. I think that you can have Robertson out there to, again, the Zaza treatment. Play him the first 5 minutes of each half, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Bring
Robertson?
him in if they're playing against KD and KD's getting hot, you throw Robertson on him. But that's it. Yeah. And he is a net negative on offense. He really just cramps your space and all this other stuff. The other thing is, Steven Adams is a really gifted passer, and he rarely gets elbow touches. Give him the ball at the elbow. Run some dribble handoff. How about a split cut? I've never seen you telling me that Russell Westbrook couldn't turn a split cut into a layup 80% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such a and again, people are going to say we're hating, but the truth is, you and I have talked about this on the podcast, and we talked about it just in person and all these other things. Russell Westbrook is such a special athlete, and he's a good basketball player, that if he just played a more team-oriented style, his efficiency would go through the roof, and I actually think his raw numbers would go up. There's nothing to you can't tell me that this guy, playing the way he does, couldn't score 35 points a game. He could. Absolutely could. He'd be getting stuff easy. But the way he plays now, it's just he makes the game more difficult for himself and the rest of his teammates. And James Hollis has finally come around. Bad Russ is not fun to watch. Now, when Russ is on one,
wait, he has?
He's fun. He has. He's bad right now. Now, when he's great, when Russell Westbrook is great, he's got that, like when Kobe was great, right? Like he's got a similar feel. He's one of the most fun guys to watch if you just throw out all your feelings about team basketball and you just say, I just want to watch one guy go nuts. He is so much fun to watch when he's going nuts. But he's not doing that right now. He's just bad.
Yeah, when he's shooting over 4 threes a game at 31%, the same BS he's been doing before. And even I've been watching other games in preparation for the video, and it was like so many of the threes. The ones he makes, you're almost like, they're like he's holding the ball for 3 or 4 seconds, jab step, whatever, and then just kind of throws it up, and it goes in, and then just serves to encourage him to shoot more. A guy that's at this point in the season now, we're already a quarter of the way through. He's shooting that poorly, and we've seen it last year too, and all the years. You really shouldn't be taking more than 2. And what I say on Twitter is, like, every 3-pointer he takes with more than 8 seconds on the clock, an angel in heaven loses its wings. That's really how bad it is. And by the way, you mentioned when he makes that early pass and then kind of stands out there, then his man is going to be thankful when he takes a 3. He's just going to sag off. And you know what the irony is? He almost makes the spacing as bad as Robertson does.
I actually brought this up. I was like, if you replace Russ, if you put him in the dunker spot instead of Robertson and had Abrinas out there, how much better their offense would be.
Yeah. I'm going to look it up really quickly because I want to see. They've been playing Felton alongside him a lot. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have. Felton has actually been really, really good. I mean, he's shooting like 41% on pull-up threes, which is insane.
I'm curious to see what that looks like when they're the 2-man out there, and it'll take me a second to call it up. So, while I'm doing that, why don't you let's grab a question from? We've got a ton of questions, a lot of good stuff going on in the Periscope. So, grab one, let's answer it.
Here's one. Nabeen Gautam 2 asks for our thoughts on Harden and CP3 together. I'll go first since you're looking that up.
Yeah.
So James Harden has been having an incredible season, one of the most incredible seasons of all time. He's just been fantastic, and Chris Paul has not played very many games, but man, he been really, really good in those games. And they are not turning the ball over when they're out there together. You can actually see the whole Chris Paul's going to lighten James Harden's load. You can see that working on the court. They work well together. They work well separately. The Rockets are going to be a problem. I mean, the Rockets are the only team in the league that I say that the Warriors probably are really worried about because they're actually defending really well too. Adding Mbamute and PJ Tucker, Capella has been good, although recently he's had a little bit of a swoon. But they are looking really good, and it starts with Harden and now CP3 coming back. They're going to be tough, man.
The stats, if you look at CP3 since he's been back, I think he's turned the ball over like 4 times in 6 games, and he has he's averaging 8 assists a game, something crazy like that. Like he's simply as efficient. He's on uber efficiency at this point with those guys. And remember, it all goes back to Harden, and this is what a lot of NBA coaches will tell you. And I don't, I won't even mention who we were just talking about. When you're talking about Harden, he puts the most pressure on your defense of any team, anybody except for LeBron. And that's what's scary about when you play Houston, because not only does he do that, but they have the shooters around him, which is part of that pressure. But he can drive that all. He's going to make good decisions. He's going to get himself on the free throw line, and that's what you can't deal with now. Russ is going to make mistakes down the stretch that will give you the game. Like that's sort of what people will say to you in the NBA circles. They're not concerned because they know he will do something that will cost them the game or multiple times down the stretch. And that goes to the whole argument on Twitter where I'm like, well, what good is all that amazingness he does through the first 3.5 quarters when he shits the bed in the fourth? They wouldn't even be in the game without him. I'm like, okay, but again, why? I wouldn't even care if he's in there in the game if he's going to shit the bed every time down the stretch. And we know that the Thunder have lost most of the close games they played. But here's the 2-man lineup data really quickly with Felton. It's interesting. They haven't played as much as I thought. It's way down the bottom of the list as far as minutes played together. It's only plus 1.7. And so the offensive rating is good for them, but the defensive rating stinks when together with just those 2 guys out there with everybody else. So, that's not working as well as I would have thought either, because that kind of means that Russ is off ball and playing the 2 guard.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-oh. Dave's choking. You know what? You came alive for a second, by the way. Just want you to know that people could see you moving for a second, and then they kind of gave up on us. So we'll see if we can't keep that going.
Yeah.
All right. What do we have? Any other questions?
Somebody
wants to know if we're going to get on the bandwagon for the Pistons.
I just did a whole podcast with Duncan Smith of The Athletic Detroit and B-Ball Breakdown. Yeah. We talked about the Pistons, and I encourage everyone to go check that out because it's good. It's really good.
You want to give us a little, the cliff notes of what you guys said?
Yeah, well, Andre Drummond can breathe now.
Okay.
And they revamped the offense and replaced his terrible post-ups with touches at the elbow. He's running dribble handoffs. I mean, his assists are up to 3.5 a game. His career high previously was like 1.8. And I know that's not much, but that's double. That's huge to be able to double your assists. And then Tobias Harris has been fantastic. Still think he needs to get to the line more, but the Pistons have been good. Van Gundy was able to turn this around, and it took him a little bit, but having Avery Bradley also does not hurt.
That is true. Avery Bradley is one of those guys that every coach loves to have. He does so many things for you. So I'm looking for some other questions here, and that was Sham God's question about who was going to get on the bandwagon with him for the Pistons. So there you go. A lot of people seem to agree with us on the Russell Westbrook take, which it's been a long time coming for me, but I still don't have the energy to deal with it, at least on Twitter at this point when I try and point it out. Although I did realize, I don't know if you figured this out, but I have another account. I have this another podcast that I'm doing on politics and culture, so I'm following myself with my other account, and I'm starting to realize that not all of my tweets show up in my new timeline. And so what I'm taking from that is that when the people want to yell at me saying that I never show anything good about Russ, it's because those tweets aren't appearing in their timeline. And I'm trying to like get that out there more clearly, because I think for all these years I felt like they just ignored it, that they willfully ignored it or whatever. But no, it turns out Twitter is making a decision, and for whatever reason, the pro Russ tweets that I'll do don't get in their timeline.
Interesting. So maybe it's a Twitter conspiracy.
It is. They got to fix that. They got to know when I'm tweeting the pro Russ and serve it to all the Russ fans. We know who you are. You usually have some version of Russ in your name or a picture of him. So, let's see here. Anything else we have from the questions over here in our last couple minutes?
Why have the Pacers been so good? That's from B Shall 2105. I think the increased pace of play has helped, and Victor Oladipo has been fantastic. I
owe him a video. Listen, I got a lot of videos in the hopper coming up, so keep your eyes open for that. But yeah, the Pacers deserve it. I can't believe it, but yeah, he has been terrific.
Yeah,
is he most improved?
I think he's definitely got to be on the list. Yeah, the short list for sure.
Well, I'm just going to grab his stats real quick so we can talk what he's doing. He's doing 23 a game. 3-point assists, 5.1 rebounds, and he's shooting 46% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. At this point, that's a lot of, he's played 20 games. This is no fluke. Right. I suspect he'll go down a little bit, but because he's never shot higher than 36% in his career. But that's major numbers. That's keeping him in games.
Absolutely. So Thomas Pereira asks, where is the best place for LeBron to go next year? I think LeBron should just retire.
Oh, wow.
Now, listen, hear me out on this. LeBron is fantastic, and I don't want him to retire. I want him to keep playing. But he doesn't have anything left to prove. He's never been injured. He's got tons of money. I feel like there's so much stuff outside of basketball that he wants to do. And just from a human standpoint, right? Like, instead of being selfish and saying, I want to watch LeBron James play basketball for the next 10 years just so he can break records, he doesn't have anything left to prove. Like, he should just retire and be happy. Get into politics more. I know he's got the movie thing happening out in L.A. I just think, I don't know. I feel like LeBron has so many interests and he's such a smart guy. I feel like he might be happier if he retired. And then he can subtweet anybody he wants and not have to read about it on ESPN or wherever else.
Meanwhile, back on Earth, yes, okay, fine, I get it. Okay, it's not whatever. But here's my take on that, because he's not going to retire.
No,
I don't understand. I don't understand why he would ever consider going to the West at all. He should just stay in the East, wherever that is. So if you want to go to that level, I would have thought the Bucks were developing. They're going to give him a run for their money. It's to be great, and then he'll go there or something like that. But that ain't going to work. I think the only option for him would be go to Philly.
So I don't like the Philly thing, but I don't like that for Philly. I think that before Waiters and JJ signed in Miami, I was thinking everybody goes back to Miami. Chris Paul is going to be a free agent next summer, or could be a free agent next summer. Melo could opt out, right? If they had the cash, they could make it work. Go to Miami and just go there, be happy. LeBron's best life, right? For me, as far as I'm concerned, he just seems so much happier when he was in Miami. You remember him riding his mountain bike to the games and stuff like that? I want that LeBron back. I just feel like the joy was there, and it bums me out that. I don't know. I just like to see these guys looking like they're having fun.
All right, yeah. I mean, speaking of having fun, did you see the tweet I last night of his travel that they didn't call?
Oh my God, that's one of the most egregious travels I've ever seen.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, okay, there was contact with the ball, but when you watch, whatever angle you see, he doesn't lose control of the ball, and he comes back down after being in the air and then jumps again and puts it in. But even if you want to argue that, then fine, that's a jump ball. It's not a bucket. And it's really, and it was overwhelmingly, people see what I'm saying and are all up in arms for it. But it's still interesting when you're a fan how you really can't see what the reality is. And then that extends across, I guess, every facet of our lives these days. So, but it's still destroying my timeline 12 hours later, and I can't get away from it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it should have been a jump ball if they thought it was a block. But yeah, it was just a missed call. But it was egregious.
Egregious is the good word for that. So, but what was not egregious was this show, because I thought we did a really good job covering a lot of these great topics. And a lot of stuff happened today. Who knew? We talked about Blake Griffin, and that's going to really hurt them. We think that DeAndre Jordan's going to get traded now. We talked about how dumb it was firing Fizdale, and we ran the gamut. It seems like great show today, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. You too. Not bad.
It's almost like we've done this before.
Once or twice.
Yeah, or you know what? This is our like 59th show.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. You didn't count all the shows that don't become podcasts, and we've probably done over 100. We've done over 100 hours together for sure.
Okay, I'm trying to think. When have we not discussed things that were not broadcast?
We've done. Well, I'm saying periscopes that we didn't put out as pods. We've done that.
Okay,
quite a few.
I guess so. All right,
yeah,
fair enough.
We've done like 100 hours.
Yeah, all right. So we're getting there. We're getting close to 10,000.
Yeah.
So
nearly there.
Yeah, and you unfroze for a little while today, so that was good. People could see.
Oh yeah, just long enough for people to see me with my finger in my eyeball.
Yeah, and lay down some hot takes. So anyway, great stuff today, and can't wait to drop this whole thing. So stay tuned for a lot of really great content coming up over on YouTube with our videos. We're gonna destroy it in December. So get your notifications turned on and tweaked, and that's all I got for you. So Dave, thanks for coming on the show today and breaking it down. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? You in, Dave?
Yes, I am.